Welcome to the Short Funk Podcast. I'm Tom Barbalet. One of the things I like to talk about, or I like to explore at least, is regional humour. And one of the things that strikes me is that the humour that was created in Australia, I go back periodically and I look at some of the humour programs that were on. They had names like Fast Forward, Full Frontal, Comedy Company. Australia You're Standing in It was probably the earliest comedy that I can remember. There are these kind of comedy shows, sketch comedy shows, typically, in fact, almost exclusively, where you can just go back and watch them occasionally and just think, what was the nature of the humour at this particular time? Like, what was funny in Australia at this particular time? And now when I go back to Australia, I don't really get a sense of Australian comedy. I mean, the one thing that I'm absolutely positive on, and I will do another short funk about this, is that people that were in positions of power when I was in Australia 20 years ago associated with entertainment, including comedy, are still there. They just look older, vastly older. Same kind of humour, same kind of thing, same shtick. Still there, 20 years on. They had jobs for life. The mythology that I associated with the nature of jobs for life, that I would never have a job for life if I stayed in Australia, the people in places, in media in particular, they had jobs for life. Good on them. More power to them. I'm sure they've lived full lives. But it is very curious that there seems to be no intellectual movement to mature any aspect of these things. So, point in fact, I went back and spent time with a couple who I enjoy spending time with, and they proceeded to show me a comedy program that a friend of theirs had made, and I'd actually seen some aspects of this. I'd seen, they did top 100 of them playing it continuously, going through various things, which was kind of interesting. Anyway, the fellow's name's Callum. I think I'm aware of his humour, but I watched two bits that he'd put together associated with being in one side Amsterdam and another side Berlin, and just what he did in those areas. In Amsterdam, he tried to sell literally some grass that he pulled up out of the ground and some mushrooms that he'd bought in a store, and it was kind of a joke about Amsterdam's, hallucinogen, and it's not even decriminalized cannabis, but, the cannabis offerings there. And I thought this was really, from my perspective at least, really very curious, particularly as Australia's drug policies really haven't changed at all. Like, if you're going to satirize anything, satirize Australia's failed war on drugs. Like, going to Amsterdam and trying to satirize them, I don't know, it didn't seem particularly striking. The other thing he did was he went to Berlin and he tried to create like a nightclub rope where he wouldn't let people walk along the Berlin Wall because they didn't have like correct dress code and things like this. I mean, these things to me seemed really laboured, and they seemed almost like there's an element of xenophobia associated with making fun of other countries and the people in other countries, which really kind of rubs me the wrong way. So my reflections associated with humour is that it's very specific. And as I get older, certainly there are certain things that I find funny, certain things I don't find funny. And I start to wonder if the humour in Australia, or just the general perception of things in Australia, is different to the kind of humour that I remember associated with Australia. Truth be told, there were no really brilliant Australian comedians. I mean, there were people like, Rodney Roode and things like that did, I don't know what we'll call it, kind of avant-garde toilet humour, for want of a better term. But, yeah, I just didn't feel it when I was there originally, and going back, still don't feel it. Tom Barbalet in San Jose, signing out.